This man had enough time. I don't know how much time elapsed before he was able to stand there and start asking people one by one what their religion was. Are you a Christian? He would ask them. And if you're a Christian, stand up. And they would stand up, and he said, good, because you're a Christian, you're going to see God in just about 1 second. And then he shot and killed them. And he kept going down the line doing this to people.
Those were some of the terribly horrific reports that came from the massacre on the college campus in Oregon. As according to eyewitnesses, the shooter lined people up, and if they said they were Christian, shot them in the head. Now, there's been some dispute about that. Is it accurate or not? But this much we do know. There has been an increasing demonization of Christianity in our culture. And by the way, if you go back over 16 years now, Columbine in 1999, we know that some of the victims there were targeted in that high school massacre. And the very first one that was killed, Rachel Scott, was asked directly, do you believe in God? You still believe in God? When she affirmed her faith, she was killed. So this has already happened in America, but we are witnessing the increasing demonization of Christianity in our culture. Governor Mike Huckabee has talked about the criminalization of Christianity. Janet Folger wrote a book on that title several years ago saying, if we simply hold to our values and our faith, our country, which was built on religious freedoms and presumed Christian faith, now if you simply hold to Christian principles, you could end up in jail. Listen to what this pastor in Oregon had to say. These pastors have been on the front lines of helping bring healing to this community, which is in agony and will be in agony in many ways for years as a result of this. Listen to what this one pastor had to say.
Who would have thought that there would be a death in our country on American soil because we believe in Jesus Christ and we call ourselves Christians? It shocked us that not just that they were killed, but that they were intentionally shot in the head for confessing to be a Christian. We can hardly wrap our minds and hearts around that yet. It's so raw.
Now you say, okay, but we don't know for sure that's why they died. Look, the death is tragic. The murder is tragic. The loss of life, the devastation of families, that's tragic regardless. But let me point something out. We did not have all the facts about this shooting when the president held his news conference. We did not know how this man got the guns that he used. We didn't know if he hadn't stolen a gun from a policeman somehow hours earlier and then showed up on the campus. We don't know any of that. The president didn't know any of that, but immediately he jumped to certain conclusions and made these statements. And listen to how overt and direct and clear he was without having all the facts. He was already drawing conclusions. Listen to the president.
There's another community stunned with grief, and communities across the country forced to relieve their own anguish, and parents across the country who are scared because they know it might have been their families or their children. And of course, what's also routine is that somebody somewhere will comment and say, Obama politicized this issue. Well, this is something we should politicize individually, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. When you decide to vote for somebody, are making a determination as to whether this cause of continuing death for innocent people should be a relevant factor in your decision.
All right. I'm all for discussion about gun control laws and how to keep guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them. But please hear me. This is urgent. I am not exaggerating this point at all. We didn't have all the facts, and yet the president was quite free to talk about gun control and even politicizing it, even saying this should be a basis for how you vote in the upcoming election, see where your candidates stand. But when word came out that Christians were involved, when word got out about this, the liberal media didn't even report it. Now consider this. Christians today in America, for holding to biblical values, if I simply say, a kid should have a mom and a dad. That's really best. Or, God didn't design a man to be with a man. I'm not just categorized today as a homophobe. I'm not just categorized today as a bigot. I am now Ku Klux Klan. I am now a Nazi. I am a hateful, evil person. Do you know, in the last few days, I don't know what prompted it, but a fresh wave of death wishes on my Facebook page from people I don't know at all, wishing me death in the most slow, painful, horrific ways, one after another after another. Someone posts a review on my book Outlasting the Gay Revolution and says this book is pure and perfect alignment with the views of white supremacy groups and the KKK. Just lies, just spew lies. Why? Because I hold to biblical values. Someone else posts this on Facebook. Oh, goody. Another neo-Nazi crazy fanatical zealot posting their BS. Hang on. We're talking about simple Christian values. We're talking about simple biblical values. And now we're the KKK. Now we're Nazis. People have been using this irresponsible rhetoric for years now. So it would not surprise me at all that some unstable person would do something irrational. Hey, it's already happened. The shooting at FRC headquarters in Washington, D.C., directly provoked by the Southern Poverty Law Center. The SPLC categorized this fine Christian organization, this family organization, the Family Research Council, as a hate group. And this shooter saw this. A gay guy, he went to Family Research Council with the goal of mass murder. And he brought Chick-fil-A sandwiches with him. He's going to smush them by the people's faces after he killed them to send a message. And the SPLC literally has blood on its hands because of that. Have they removed FRC as a hate group? No, they've re-entrenched themselves in terms of what they're saying. Now look, let me point out the bias in the clearest way that I can. Let's imagine that the earliest reports were that this shooter went into a creative arts class and had everyone stand up and say, are you gay or straight? And if they said gay, he shot them in the head. The moment that report got out, the internet would have been ablaze. The moment that report got out, CNN and MSNBC, they would have been all over it. Liberal news outlets would have been all over it, and the horror of it, and the homophobia of America. And they'd be quoting preachers and conservative activists and say, it's all because you have created this toxic environment. And that would have just been based on maybe the report, just like the tragic murder of Matthew Shepard. It's actually tragic. There are laws that are based on it. The hate crime law is based on his murder, but all the evidence says he wasn't murdered because of homosexual issues. The talking point was, and point that was used to try to reduce a court sentence, it backfired, was that the guy that killed him was offended when Matthew Shepard tried to pick him up in a bar, and he was offended. It actually had to do with drug deals and money owed, and in point of fact, the kids knew each other, and there are many that say they had sex together many times. So the report was based on falsehood. That has not stopped it from becoming part of the national narrative to the point of becoming the name of a national law. What would have happened if the first reports were that he went in there and lined up students and said in a world religion class and said, what's your religion? If they said Muslim, shot him in the head. The moment that report got out, the secular media would have been all over it, Islamophobia, and we need to do a better job of talking about Islam in America. Look at this. But when the initial eyewitness reports were out, and this was very quick, major news, conservative news immediately began to say, it looks like Christians were targeted. Christians were targeted. This is what actually happened. My wife was watching coverage on CNN, and Nancy said it wasn't until around midnight that night that they began to talk about the Christian aspect of this. Why? Because it is open season on Christians today. It is a time of the demonizing of Christianity. We shouldn't be surprised. This has happened before in our history, not just that we're persecuted. And look, we're not having our heads chopped off on the streets on a regular basis now, like our brothers and sisters are facing in the Middle East. So let's wake ourselves up to reality and be strong. But it has been throughout history that we're lied against, that we're maligned, that false information is circulated against us, and that brings then with it a popular uprising, popular opinion turning, vilifying of Christians. What that means is this: those making public statements need to be more responsible and tone down their rhetoric. Whether on social media or other places, be responsible with your communication, because all of these death wishes and hate wishes and ugly things will provoke unstable people to do unstable things. And then lastly, for Christians, be strong. The opposition is going to increase. I believe the tide will turn, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. Be strong, be determined not to compromise your convictions, and don't be ashamed of the name of Jesus. He said, if you confess me before men, I'll confess you before my Father in heaven.